Well, after it looked like the Denver Nuggets were ready to run away with the NBA Finals and win it all in dominant fashion, Erik Spoelstra and the Miami Heat got back to doing what they've done all postseason long and adjusted to come back to even the series at 1. Staring down a 2-0 series deficit in a building where no visitor had come away with a win in over 60 days, Heat culture prevailed as the 8 seed once again found a way. With a crucial Game 3 in Miami now on the horizon, let's take a look at how, despite being heavy underdogs, the Heat fought their way back into the series and went toe-to-toe with the game's best player and hottest lineup. Hey folks, my name is Dylan Brett, and in this video, we're going to break down all the adjustments that Spo and the Heat made to turn the tide of this series and steal Game 2 in Denver. Just wanted to welcome you to our basketball community before continuing, and remind you to subscribe for more NBA content and comment down below with your take on the series thus far. Now, the Heat have been at this game throughout their Cinderella playoff run, and you must not have watched the first 3 rounds if you thought Denver was going to dominate this series wire to wire, and Miami was going to go down without a fight. Miami holds a point differential of -24 in the first 3 quarters of games in these playoffs, and that number skyrockets up to +90 in the fourth quarter due to their ability to adjust. This team's ability to think and adjust on the fly has been their saving grace throughout this run, as Spo continues to assert himself as one of the game's great coaches. This is a Heat team that ages like fine wine throughout a series and gets to know their opponents like the back of their hand. So without further ado, let's fire up the film and dive into what adjustments the Heat made to take back control of the series. It feels like throughout this playoff run, the name of the game for Miami's offense has been heavy high ball screening with Bam Adebayo in order to match up hunt for guys like Jimmy Butler. Due to Denver's massive size advantage this series, we didn't see much of this in Game 1 as there aren't many matchups to exploit like we saw in Boston, if any. However, Miami has now begun to use this formula with their small ball lineups to confuse and confound the Nuggets defense with heavy motion and constant switching. They also incorporated heavy usage of slipping screens and false action to confuse the Nuggets even further, and it worked like a charm on Sunday night. Instead of Adebayo initiating the action, it was guys like Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, and Max Strus, while Bam assumed the playmaker role up high. This resulted in several defensive miscommunications by Denver throughout Game 2, which allowed Miami shooters ample room to find their missing groove and return to knockdown shooter status. So jumping into the tape, if you watched my video on the Derek White game winner, I always say that the inbounder is the most dangerous player on these plays, and Miami takes a page out of that book here. Off the inbounds pass by Strus, Love and Vincent pin down the defenders as an inbounds pass is floated to Bam, who dishes to Strus for a wide open 3. In this next set, we see Strus slip the high ball screen and there's no communication on a switch from KCP and MPJ, leading to a wide open corner 3. I partially think this concept caught the Nuggets off guard, as there was often no need to switch in Game 1 with Miami's bigs setting the high ball screens. Now, with the Heat's quick, shifty guards setting them, there's cause to switch on almost every possession. Because Miami shooters were finally knocking down their open looks, this opened up their spread pick and roll game, as Denver's back line rose dramatically throughout the game. After all, there's a reason that Jimmy, Strus, and Vincent combined for 15 assists in Game 2 after their collective 3-point percentage rose over 30%. Here's a perfect example of that, as Bam is able to quietly sink below the back line due to Denver's abundance of attention on Strus at the top of the key. Here, later in the third quarter, Jokic and KCP come flying up to deny the dribble handoff that led to open threes time and time again throughout the game, which gives Strus a window to find Bam rolling to the basket and complete the tough finish. Overall, it's amazing how something as simple as creating space and making shots has opened up Miami's offense so much within the span of 2 games, and as the Heat continue to wake up on the outside, it'll be interesting to see how Michael Malone and the Nuggets counter defensively. So now let's talk about the changes made to the starting lineup and understand how Spo manages one of the deepest bench rotations in the league. The Heat have an array of instant impact guys that constantly float between the bench rotation and the starting lineup, and Kevin Love was the latest of that group to join the starting 5. Starting in the place of Caleb Martin, K-Love was able to provide a much-needed presence in the interior and mitigate some of the massive mismatches that plagued the Heat in Game 1. He handled the task of defending Aaron Gordon one-on-one perfectly, as the big man was held to just 7 field goal attempts and 12 points in 38 minutes. Love's inside presence also provided much needed help in the transition game, which was much needed after the Nuggets doubled up Miami in fast break points in Game 1. With Love back on defense in transition, we'd see guys like MPJ or Gordon opt for an outside look time and time again over attacking the paint. In the half court, so many times in Game 1 we'd see AG initiate the offense from the low post, as he often drew a mismatch against Martin or Strus with Bam Adebayo occupied on Jokic. While these mismatches will always be a part of the game when playing a team as big and imposing as Denver, in Game 2 Love was able to provide some much needed weak side help when his teammates were in trouble down low. Despite playing just 22 minutes, the Heat were plus 18 with Love on the floor, while Denver's points per possession tumbled from 1.19 to 0.85. So now let's talk about this guy. Duncan Mean Mug Robinson defies just about every single statistical and analytical trend in the book by embodying the shooters shoot mentality. This is a guy that was effectively benched in the latter parts of the regular season after posting one of the worst statistical shooting stretches in the league. Now he's inexplicably knocking down some of the biggest shots of the year for Miami with no hesitation whatsoever. Just one of several prolific shooters that Spoelstra is able to utilize off the bench, Robinson caught fire in the fourth quarter for a red-hot 10-point stretch that saw him knock down back-to-back crucial threes to chop the Denver lead in half. You can throw all the numbers you want at this situation, but it really is just a confidence game. When the Miami Heat are making their shots, Duncan Robinson is making his shots. It's really that simple. Duncan can constantly be seen taking advantage of floor spacing and heavy off-ball screening, and he's recently added a new dimension to his game, creating his own shot with a variety of fakes in recent series. If Miami continues to capitalize on the momentum and takes this series, this man's hand will be in it without a doubt. Now, I don't intend to state the obvious again, but I said in my NBA Finals preview that this series would be determined by how Miami decides to contain the big Serbian Nikola Jokic, and Miami was able to do this incredibly effectively in Game 2. One may look at his 41-point, 11-rebound performance and scoff at how he was able to dominate the Heat defense, but the key number in that stat line is his 4 assists. I'm always on record saying that what makes Jokic so dangerous is his ability to make those around him better, and by severing his capability to do that, the Heat were able to earn themselves a win and contain Denver's high-octane offense for the most part. You see, in Jokic's 3 highest scoring games this postseason, the Nuggets hold a record of 0-3. In his 8 highest scoring games, they're 4-4, and in his 9 lowest scoring games, his team is 9-0. Better yet, the Nuggets have lost 9 straight games when the Joker has 4 or fewer assists, including Sunday night. So how were the Heat able to keep the Joker on an island and limit him as a passer? How did they manage to put a lid on this explosive 2-man game with Jamal Murray? In the end, all it took was a little bit of ice. The Heat profusely iced the high pick and roll in Game 2, forcing the Nuggets ball handlers away from the lane and towards the baseline. What's the number one way to stop the best passers in the world? Limit the number of directions they can beat you from. Guys like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray are so quick and explosive, if you allow them to get to the middle of the floor, their options are endless. Here, in one of Denver's first offensive possessions of the game, Joker tries to initiate high pick and roll with MPJ, but Strus does a phenomenal job of icing him towards the baseline while Bam drops to defend the roll option. Jokic is forced to hesitate and take an uncomfortable 3 as the Heat get the stop. What does ice lead to? One man in the middle of the floor with the rest of his sharpshooters shut off outside, just like Spo drew it up. Now, a popular counter to this is by going big and running the same concept with a guy like AG, but this is where the addition of Kevin Love into the starting lineup shines, as he slides to alter Jokic's shot while Bam shuts off Gordon on the roll option. Look, overall, I think the league has learned that there's no way to fully stop Nikola Jokic, but what you can do is contain his destruction to just one area of the floor and make him single-handedly beat you, and that is exactly what the Heat did in Game 2. So with 2 games down in the finals, it now feels like anyone's series after we saw cracks in Denver's armor for really the first time in weeks. As these 7-game series usually do, it's become much more of a chess match between the coaches as compared to a basketball game between the players. Mike Malone got the better of Erik Spoelstra's defense in Game 1, but the savvy veteran made the necessary adjustments to storm back and take Game 2. Now with Miami in the driver's seat heading back home, the ball is in Malone's court to counter and put his team in a position to bounce back and win. Both of these teams still have a wild card or two in their back pockets as well, as Miami is yet to see a scoring outburst from playoff Jimmy, while Tyler Hero waits in the wings as well. For Denver, they'll likely make an adjustment to their offensive attack for the first time in weeks and throw something at the Heat that the league hasn't seen in a while. Please like and leave a comment with your take on this series to join our discussion, and subscribe to the channel for more NBA breakdowns. No matter what happens, I cannot wait to see where this series goes. With 2 games in the rear view and the real battle set to begin, it's time to see which of these shot callers rises to the occasion while the other sinks into primitive ways. Enjoy the series, folks.